Welcome to Babes in Bookland, your women's memoir podcast. I'm your host, Alex Franca, and this week my friend Kate joins me to discuss Brandy Norwood's Phases. Brandy gave us Cinderella, Moesha, and some of the most gorgeous vocals of the 90s. And in return, the industry gave her burnout, bad boyfriends, and a reputation for being too good. Her new memoir, Phases, is her finally reclaiming the narrative. And today's episode, we're getting into all of it. What she said, what she held back, and why we're still rooting for her. Thanks for being here. And if you'd like to further support the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or find us on Patreon for exclusive content and extended episodes. Hi, Kate. How are you?
Good. I'm happy to be back.
I'm happy that you're here. Thank you so much for reading this book very quickly. Did you read it or did you listen to it?
A little bit of both. I don't know if there is an audiobook version. So I downloaded the Kindle version to read, but then I use my assistive reader.
That's right.
My robotic reader when I'm driving or, if I don't have time to sit down and actually read.
I feel like that would be such a mistake if they do not have Brandy.
Yeah, I would have loved to have heard her tell it her in her voice.
Mm-hmm. And her voice is so smooth. I love it. Okay, so Brandy did write this with Garrett Kennedy, and I appreciate that she shouted out her co-writer on the cover. I think celebs are doing this thing where they've realized that we will find them out if they have a ghostwriter. So just tell us that you didn't write this. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't expect someone who hasn't spent their whole life writing to necessarily be, a phenomenal writer.
Right. So what did you think of Brandy's Phases?
Okay. I really enjoyed it as a person who comes from a music background, who myself, had singing aspirations growing up. I worked at a record label right out of college briefly. I knew a lot of the people that she was talking about, and my eyes were bulging out of my head at times. It was really amazing to hear her talk about. In some ways, she was sort of, the first to the picnic for some of these really major names and people who then went on to do even more and more. So it was really cool to hear her perspective on that and just her experiences. I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed experiencing her emotional journey in terms of finding herself and all of that. I thought it was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. For me, this memoir was a lot of things. It was really interesting to me when it came to her writing about discovering and fostering her talent. And I found it a little boring when she was talking about the background to all of the music stuff because I didn't really know these people. And also I didn't know the songs.
Yeah, it's a lot of I feel like there was a lot of peeling back the curtain onto the creative process, which, I think you and I mean, we both have somewhat of a creative background, so we can get into it somewhat. But when you get into things like mixing and the studio and all of that work, that's so niche specific to that particular type of work that I know what you mean. Once she started getting into the nitty gritty of all of that, it was oh, okay, this is interesting, but I don't really have anything to, compare it to.
And it was also I don't want to be rude, but these weren't commercial successes. So it almost felt like she was trying to be but guys, look how hard I worked on them. And it's I never doubted that she worked really hard. And it was heartbreaking, the amount of herself that she really did seem to pour into these things. And when that one producer who she thought she had a good relationship with kept giving all of the bangers to other singers. And how Aaliyah said that she didn't want her producer to work. It was all of that background stuff was interesting. But it's just if I am not a fan of the song or the album, I'm not interested at the bat. And I like Brandy. I loved learning about The Boy Is Mine because I know that song and I love that song. Yeah. But there was too much of the other stuff, unfortunately, which, is a big part of her life. So I get why she included it. But for me, that's where the memoir dragged a bit.
You mean I was looking things up as I was reading it. I was looking up the song on Apple Music or whatever and trying to pair up to what she was saying, and I think that really helped because I feel if I hadn't done that, or because when I wasn't doing that, it started to get really heady, kind of oh, there's so many details about this thing but I can't really attach to what she's talking about. So
yeah.
I needed to like actually hear the song she was talking about.
Girl, I told myself, I finished this book last week and I said, listen to Brandy's albums, listen to Brandy's albums, listen to Brandy's albums. I did not. I don't know what I was doing. I think I just kind of, I wasn't in a place where I could like put music on where maybe my kids weren't around and you never know. But I did watch the pilot of Moesha last night. So we'll get into that, which was,
Okay, see that I didn't go down, and I wasn't. I feel like Moesha was maybe just a smidge before
it
our
was.
time. Like we were a little young for Moesha, so I don't. I mean, I knew about it and I was familiar with it, but I never really watched the show or got into it. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say. That's very cool.
Yes, we'll get there. I also felt like her memoir was a bit timid in the way that she seemed to approach talking about her life. It seemed to me like her memoir was, I was at the top of my game, and then I kind of faded into not obscurity because Brandy is too big to ever be obscure, but she didn't have this lasting power either by choice or by no fault to her own because of the music. She didn't really talk about like I'm not taking acting jobs anymore. Like it was weird. It was just kind of like
Yeah.
here's me growing up, here's Moesha. And but then it was like clearly this memoir is her announcing her sort of comeback or attempting.
Assuming is going on. I mean, I
Yeah.
would assume that's, what she's planning. And it would be like a logical time. Like her daughter, because I looked up her daughter. Her daughter is grown now. She's like in her early 20s. And, this would be a logical time for her to come back and start doing some projects and things. And
But because she was planning that, there wasn't, I just felt like there was so much more that she could have explored about her feelings of things. It felt like she almost got there a few times, and we'll read a couple of quotes today. But then it was like she's too afraid to burn bridges. She still wants to be seen as a
yeah.
good person and a good girl.
Like, is she trying to still keep some doors open with some of the way that she's talking about? Because to me, there were a lot of things that she described that I was horrified by. Like, she started this career when she was basically 10 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
what she was doing. And so, yeah, I had a lot of thoughts on some of the things she experienced at a very young age, very young. I mean, she released that first single or that first she was 15. I mean, she was a baby. Oh my gosh. So thinking about some of what she went through, to me, it read like basically a horror story of like what happens when children are in that industry and exposed to way too much, way too soon. And it does. And then they're used. It's like, where are the child labor laws? Like, why are there no protections in place to limit people from taking advantage, which is what they're doing? They're making a commercial product of these children, these literal children, and then just using them up for all they're worth until they burn out and then just throw them away. I mean, I was so mad. I was so mad the whole time.
Yeah.
I felt like she was restrained in what I was experiencing. A lot of anger and like hurt for her was just kind of like plainly stated sometimes of like, this is what happened, as opposed to maybe digging into a little bit of like her own, because I'm sure she has a lot of feelings about it now as an adult looking back on it and having her own child. So
Yes.
yeah, it felt restrained to me. I would agree with that.
I'm glad we're on the same page then.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's get further into it. Her book just came out end of March, and her dedication is to Cyree, continue to be a light. All right, well, let's get into our quick topic. So, Katie, what is your favorite Brandy song or performance?
Okay, so for me, it's definitely Have You Ever?
Oh,
Do you know that one?
do I know it?
Do you know it? Okay.
Did I
Just making
live in
sure.
the early late 90s, early aughts?
But like that song, okay, that song was written by Diane Warren and then produced by David Foster, who like I don't know if you know who that is, but to me
I
when I
do
read
because
that,
I watched The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills when he was
okay,
married
there
to
you
Yolanda.
go. Okay, there you go.
He's
But
married to Catherine McPhee, by the way.
yeah, I do know that.
Okay, okay.
But they are both, icons in their own right. And so it's like no surprise to me that that's the one that because I didn't realize that until I was reading that part of the book. And I was like, oh, no wonder I know and love that song. Like, and
Yeah.
she did it such justice. She sings it beautifully. So, yeah, definitely that one.
Yeah. Okay. Ready for a semi-embarrassing story that I'm not embarrassed about because her
Yes.
life is life. So I loved The Boy Is Mine so much,
Yeah.
Katie, like
Hmm.
so much.
I didn't know that.
I was an only child. I would I would like do music videos by myself, like little
Cool.
performances. I
Yeah.
would be Brandy and then I would be Monica, like fighting with myself about a boy, just like
Oh
in my
my
room.
gosh. Oh, that's so cute though. That's like it's so wholesome.
But like that is one of the memories. I mean, I can see the room that I'm in. I remember doing that physically in my body. It's one of my like
Yeah.
strongest memories of childhood.
Oh, I love
I
that.
just love that song so much. And then, I mean, Brandy as Cinderella, I mean, she
hmm
nailed that part. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize as a young girl that I was seeing something so groundbreaking.
Yeah.
I just saw a beautiful young woman playing Cinderella and like singing the hell out of it. And like she talks
Right.
about the casting. And it was interesting because they were like, do we have too many black people with Whitney Houston? Like, should we not hire Brandy? And then I was like, wait, Whoopi Goldberg was in it too. Like, what's
Yeah.
happening? Why would you? I don't know. I was like, Brandy's the one that you're gonna,
I
but I guess that
know.
must have been a big step. The lead, Cinderella, the title
Yeah.
character, being not this white blonde girl,
Yeah. Sure.
but I loved it. I think that's a really good performance.
It was really good. Yeah, that was really good. And just like now knowing, because I didn't know all that about her relationship with Whitney Houston. So now knowing that, I see it in a different light, of kind of part of their budding relationship.
The Whitney Houston story, the arc of that was wild.
I really enjoyed that aspect of this book. That was very cool.
Me too, because we'll never get Whitney's memoir, you know? And so
No,
to
yeah.
have someone who was in the industry and loved Whitney, the icon, before getting to know
Yeah.
Whitney, the person, but still
hmm
approaching her with such love, like I did really love reading about those interactions. I
Me
thought they were
too.
really special.
Me too.
Okay. Brandy opens the memoir kind of about to go on stage to sing The Boy Is Mine with Monica as like an anniversary performance at the Grammys.
Yeah.
She won a Grammy for that song. So, very quickly, give our listeners your Grammy story. We do have this story in one of our paywalled episodes. I believe it's our sister act episodes.
Yeah. I think that,
We
yeah.
do both movies in one bonus episode, so be sure to check that one out. But Katie, you sang at the Grammys when we were in college, which was like the
Yeah.
coolest thing ever. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was part of a backup choir for Gnarls Barkley. If you remember Gnarls Barkley, CeeLo Green. It was incredible. And I want to say in the book, she described a little bit about being on the Grammy stage. And that part, I was like, oh yeah, she's dead on. Like this is very disorienting, almost dizzying. I mean, it's so many people and it's such a large space. And, even if you've been in somewhat larger theaters before, nothing can compare to this feeling. And we were up on a big platform beam. It wasn't even really, I mean, it was like a
How
what do they
wide
call
was
that?
it?
It was pretty narrow. Like
Oh.
it was a little frightening being up there and but it was incredible and it was very cool to, meet some different people, be backstage, all of that.
What was the rehearsal process like for that?
So I want to say we did several rehearsals in we did several rehearsals in a rehearsal studio or like, rehearsal hall before the big day. And then we had maybe just one or two dress rehearsals, like actually there at the Staples Center the night, the day or two before. And then we just did it. I mean, I thought it was way less rehearsal than like I ever would have expected, meanwhile, thinking about high school musicals and things and rehearsing for months for these things, you just 2, 3 rehearsals and you put it on. Go people.
Yeah, well, that's why you were a professional. They
I
can
suppose
count on
so.
you to nail it.
And actually, funny story, that was the first job like ever that I ever got paid for. Like I'd never had another job so I always laugh. I'm like, that was my very first paycheck was singing at the Grammys.
Okay, wait, this might be
It
such a
was not a lot of money. Don't
yeah.
worry. It was not a lot of money. It was like $1,000 for the whole thing, but
I know, but I feel like I would pay to be in the backup choir for the Grammys. So I'm
right?
actually
I thought it
like,
was the exact same thing. I was like, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. Because it
wow,
was just such a fun experience and just totally wild.
it's so cool. Next quick topic. So Brandy starts her period on her first TV show,
Mm.
Thea. And a
Yeah.
woman tells her, which I like this, a woman tells her, that's your power coming in.
Oh, love
I
it.
thought that was a beautiful way to
Yeah,
put it.
I
The rest
do.
of her
Yeah.
experience on Thea, not so good. And even like her
Right.
TV mom, Thea, turned around and kind of like made this really uncomfortable joke. But, anyways, what was your first period story? Do you remember? Was it
Oh yeah, I
dramatic?
remember.
Oh,
It wasn't that dramatic, I guess. So I was in PE at school. I was in 5th grade.
wow,
I was
that's
pretty
young.
young. I was pretty young. And I was like basically the first of my friends to get her period. What about you?
So I was in high school. I was a
Oh,
freshman in high school
okay.
and I hadn't started my period yet. I was the last of all of my friends and I was like so ashamed, which is so silly. I
Aw.
know, because it's like, I can't control my body.
Yeah.
And it was my birthday weekend. It was my 14th birthday. And I was on a speech and debate overnight trip.
Oh my gosh.
And luckily, there was this girl who I had already befriended. She was a senior, and she just took me under her wing. It was like my 14th birthday present from the Lord. He was like, here you go. Here's your
That's
power coming
here's your
in.
power coming in.
But I'm stealing that, dude. When my daughter
Yeah,
starts her
that's
period, I'm be like,
cool.
that's your power coming
That's
in.
your power coming
Oh, love
in. I
it.
love that.
This memoir is Brandy telling her story in her own words, reclaiming her narrative, telling her truth. But she writes, still, even now, I'm afraid I will disappoint people by sharing my story. I'm certain details here will differ from how others might have told it. So that was also my first clue to be like, okay, so she's holding back a little bit, or, and there's something to that, right? Like, we're all living our own versions of whatever
Yeah,
truth we're experiencing.
sure.
And she really gets into that when she talks about dating Wanya from
Yeah.
Boys to Men, which that entire chapter, that was the one time where I was like, oh, she turned up the heat here. This is what I've been wanting this whole time. But
Yeah.
I also get it. I'm sure she had to just balance being defensive and didn't want
Hmm.
to come across bitter. And I know that there's, the angry black woman stereotype. And so I understand this line that it felt like she was walking very carefully, but it did feel more like I don't want to burn any bridges in an industry that I'm about to hopefully have a comeback
Go
in,
back into.
as opposed to someone who's just like, fuck it, I'm done with this. Like, let me tell you guys what happened.
I will say, I liked though that I'm trying to remember the name of that chapter because she ended the chapter, the final words of the chapter, like her final words on the issue were he was an adult and I was a child.
Yes.
That in and of itself is enough right there for me to be like, yeah, she's like condemning this. This is, she's saying what it is. And there was some stuff in there about like technicalities around, well, we never did it in a state where it's illegal
I
or
had
whatever.
that in
And
the
it's like,
outline because that is so fucking gross.
I'm like, babe, if you knew enough at the time to know that you weren't doing it in the states there where it was legal, then you at the very least knew it was immoral. You knew
Yes.
that there was a question about whether this was right. And if you loved this woman, you would not do this to her. This child, I should say, this child.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would have waited. Like, how hard would it be to just wait? Like, come on.
I know. She doesn't have a lot of winners in the
Mm-mm.
male partner
No.
arena. She has no
Yeah.
winners. I don't even know if she's currently with someone. It didn't
With
seem like she
anyone.
was. She doesn't
Mm-mm.
mention anyone in the book. We'll get to that. But let's start with her childhood.
Mm.
She was born in Macomb, Mississippi, but her family relocates to Carson, a suburb of LA, when she's 4, after her father is offered a minister of music gig at a church in Inglewood. Singing is seen as a gift from God and her family, one meant to be shared. It's a huge part of who she is, who her family are, and from a very young age, as is the church. I really love her chapter about Macomb, Mississippi. There's the little
Yeah.
history lesson there. And she writes about how later, as an adult, she's struck by how Macomb was this safe place to her as a child because she was among people who loved her, who didn't expect anything from her, I think is really what it
Right.
boils down to.
Yeah.
And especially as a child, in contrast to like the bullying and the tension that she was experiencing in Carson, she writes Time magazine called Macomb the toughest anti-civil rights community in the toughest anti-civil rights area in the toughest anti-civil rights state in the Union. And
Yeah.
she details the rippling effects that segregation and hate has had on her family, on their community. And I thought that this whole chapter was just such a testament to the resilience of the Black community. She writes, by the
Yeah.
time I was born, change had come, but like a cautious visitor, most folks kept to their own, not by law anymore, but by choice, or at least what passed for choice, when generations of separation had carved such deep channels in the landscape of the human condition.
Yeah.
I thought that was, I mean, go Garrick.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about when we discussed Katherine Johnson's memoir, there was a lot of history seeped into that. I don't know. I just appreciate when when that stuff isn't ignored.
It's so nice to hear the story of just an individual in that time period. Like it makes it so much more relatable and real. And I also feel like what you said, that it was a safe place for her. Like her parents clearly did a remarkable job of, in in that context that she's just given us, making this is the place that she feels the safest in the world and the most like herself, in this place that otherwise, in a grand view of history was probably not so safe. And
Yeah.
yet family has a way of kind of grounding us and securing us when they do it right. Sounds like hers did.
I mean, her parents sounded amazing. Even
They did.
we'll get into the tricky relationship that she develops
Right.
with her mother when her mother becomes her manager. But
Yeah.
it made sense to me that who I always felt Brandy was, this grounded, more secure individual than, there are a lot of insecurities that came through during her memoir and she touches on, which
Yeah.
how can you dodge those being a young person in the industry? Like it makes sense to
Yeah.
me that she experienced them, but overall, she seemed like she knew her worth and her value.
Hmm.
Even though she was told, she wasn't pretty, she looked like an alien. Later, she was definitely discriminated against because of the color of her skin. And so all that stuff. But I thought that was what made some of the funner moments in the memoir when her sass and her personality and her confidence really shined through. This little girl did some things that I was like, whoa, where did that confidence
She
come from?
had some fire in her.
She
Like, let's be
did.
real. And I'm like, I hope we see more of that, in the next, like, if she
Yeah.
does make a comeback, girl, give us your fire. Like, because it's
Give
in
us the
there.
sun to your moon, like
Yeah.
maybe both need to exist. And I
Hmm.
agree. I think that that's something and she talks about being a people pleaser, feeling like she had to be a good girl. All of that stuff makes so much sense to me. We've heard it time and time again in a lot of these young pop stars' memoirs.
Yeah.
But so it's like, okay, now what? Let
Yeah.
that fire out.
Well, and I think like contextually, like thinking about the music industry back then versus today, it's a safer space now for her to basically just be her authentic, whatever artistic self she wants. Whereas back then, you weren't anybody without the machine, and the machine churned you up and spit you out as whatever they wanted you to be, basically. And you had
Yeah.
to be chosen and picked. And so all of that, like, I feel like a lot of her insecurities were about that. Whereas now, people can get on TikTok or YouTube and basically make themselves stars, They don't have to align themselves with some group of people who wants to package them in any particular way. Now, many obviously do ultimately because they see the value in marketing, which it does have some value, but still, it shouldn't be running the show. And I think she could come back. Like she's very talented. I
Yeah.
mean, man, hearing about her conducting the choir when she was like 10 years old, are you kidding me? Like 10 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she's kind of a musical genius,
Clearly
I
got
think.
incredible talent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I would agree. I would agree. So I'm excited to see what she does next, and I do hope that she, at the very least, because I think she would write like this was the most authentic album to myself. But to your point, like it's only to a point that it could be authentic
Yeah.
to who Brandy was.
Uh-huh.
It still had to be who the market needed her to
Right.
be in order to sell it. And so it's kind of
Or
like,
honestly, who like a select few executives at a record label wanted it to be. Like truly, it was coming down to the opinions of like just a couple of men, and mostly it was men,
yeah.
which, blah.
Blah, totally. Okay, I also loved learning about the significance and importance of braids in her family and the
Oh,
community.
yeah. Mm.
That was kind of interwoven throughout. Later in the memoir, she'll write that getting her braids done during Moesha was one of the few times that she found like a respite from the grind that her life had
Yeah.
become. She writes, never would I have imagined that my hair would have become such an essential part of my story, how those braids would transcend mere style to become symbolic. So now this could be an age thing too, because so I watched the pilot last night and her hair it's in all of these tiny,
Tiny
teeny.
braids.
I'm like,
Yeah.
whose fingers did this? Insane.
Yeah.
How long does it take?
So long.
I mean, it looked
Hours.
rad.
Hours, literal hours.
It was
Yeah.
fantastic. But because I watched Sister Act 2,
Yeah.
to me, Lauryn Hill, that was who maybe Brandy walked so Lauryn Hill could run with the braids. I don't know. I'd have to look up the
Yeah.
timing, but it was interesting because I didn't realize that Brandy was the first Black actress or Black celebrity to really rock the braids.
Yeah, I wonder if it was time-wise too, like when well, I don't know. I guess she would have been on our radar by that point when she was still doing the braids. Because I do feel like when I saw pictures of her in later years, like maybe by the time she was in her mid-20s, she had transitioned to using more like of a straight style. Let me see. Or maybe it's just that I'm like familiar with the pictures I've seen of her in recent years where her hair is
Like on
not
the
braided.
yeah,
Yeah.
like on her memoir cover. Does she have braids as in Cinderella? See, I don't remember. She has the braids at least at the crown of her head.
Oh yeah, she does. Look at that. Yeah.
I love that she wrote this part. And then what I was missing was the flip side of it. Like, what did it feel like did she feel pressure to keep the braids for a really long
Mm-hmm.
time? What did it feel like when she
Right.
wanted to go with a different look? Again, it's just like things were
Yeah.
not fully explored or developed sometimes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, and she did talk about, feeling sort of pigeonholed by decisions that it sounds like were kind of made for her about her image when she was younger that then were hard to break out of. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I wonder if that was part of it too or not.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about singing and church. She writes, church is where I first unraveled the intricacies of my voice. It was where I learned how to let my voice soar above the rest when it was my turn to shine, and how to tuck it neatly into the fabric of the collective when it wasn't. It made me think of you. Like, how did you first discover your talent? Did you go to church growing up? Did you sing at church?
I did go to church growing up, but I don't recall ever singing at church. It had nothing. I just came into the world singing by my mother's description. It was sort of like truly from as young of an age as I can remember. I loved to sing. I was always singing. And I mean, I was begging my mom for voice, like singing lessons by the time I was probably 9 or 10. And like she made me wait till I was about 12.
I wonder why.
I think she did call some voice teachers, but they all said I was too young. They felt like
Okay.
I was too young, which I feel like people might view that differently now. But the one I specifically wanted to work with, like that my mom had kind of told me about some different people, she said she wouldn't start before age 12. And now looking back on it, I appreciate it because I feel like even just starting that young, you're much more prone to burnout. Like anything you start at that young age, I mean,
It's
it's
true.
hard. It's hard to have something like that shift with your identity as you do get older and come into who you are. And I think there are benefits to waiting sometimes.
I loved singing at church. I never, so grew up Catholic, but there was this freedom. I mean, most people are just kind of like mumble singing. It was not a Sister Act situation. We did not have this like amazing choir of nuns. Later on, when I was in high school, we kind of had like more of a youth group, and the song should be a little bit more like rockish, however rockish Christian Catholic songs could be. But there was just something about this idea that you weren't just singing for yourself. Like it was a prayer. It was a
Mm,
rejoicing. It was,
yeah,
so it didn't matter what you sounded like. And I
totally.
don't know, there's something so beautiful too, I think, about well,
Gospel
music. Like
music. Hmm.
it's empowering and it's moving and it's like in your entire body. And
Hmm.
what a beautiful thing for her to have grown up
Yeah.
this way. And her dad just seemed to trust her and give her confidence and independence, like you said,
Yeah.
taking control of a choir at 10 years old. Like that's not
I
easy.
really found the story interesting that he was such a big part of her story early on and like moving and shaping her direction. And then we don't hear about him very much after she's actually out there. And I wonder if maybe he had to continue working or I mean, I'm sure probably like had to continue working. But yeah, I just kind of wanted him more involved like
You're
throughout the
so
whole thing.
right.
I was like, he was such a stabilizing force for her and like such a believer in her that I just wanted him to like pop his head and be like, it's gonna be okay. You're amazing. Like, don't give up.
1,000%, especially when it comes to her mom. It feels like both of her parents were very confident in her ability and wanted very much for her to explore being a singer and like doing everything that they could to help that happen. And then when it was happening and her mom became her manager, there must have been conflict there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That is really interesting. Maybe he just kind of helped cultivate her voice. And then, another thing well, I guess we'll get into it now. Her brother was attempting his own career. And I would say, like, we'll know Ray J's name. I mean, for
Yeah.
reasons other than maybe his singing.
Right.
She has sort of one chapter where she's like, oh man, like I love him so much. Like I didn't want it to be a competition between us. Like I would have given everything for my brother to make it. And then that's
Hmm.
kind of it too. I'm sorry. If your brother is potentially like the reason the Kardashians fucking exist, I need a little bit of your opinion on that.
I know, right? I wanted to know what she thought too.
Yes.
This is a hot topic, but maybe she was like, that's not my story to tell, which that, I can respect if she's like, that was his experience and his.
I don't know. I feel like that was her
And or
trying to
he's going to release a
dodge.
book about it at some point, and she doesn't want to give away all the good, juicy details.
But nothing. She gave us nothing. She pretended it didn't even happen. The
Yeah,
Kardashians,
that was to me, that was a very clear choice. And for
yes.
whatever reason she made that choice.
It made me wonder what else she was holding back, though, is all I'm saying. Like, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
You're super close with your brother, and then he creates Kim Kardashian. And the
Mhm.
Kardashians have, for better, for worse, been one of the
Yeah.
most influential families over the past 10 years at this point.
Yeah.
Come on, girl. Like, give us
I know.
something. Something that would have been very juicy. That would have helped. I think people would have flocked to her book to read
Oh,
that stuff.
absolutely.
And I definitely understand it's her story and her truth, but like, I don't know. If your sibling did something like that, I
It
think
could
you'd have
still
some
be, I
thoughts on
mean,
it.
yeah, it could still be more focused around just her experience of the kind of
How
reactions
wild
to
was
it.
it
And
that,
yeah,
yeah, totally. But getting back to church, this is also where it seemed that she understood the burden of this gift. She has a solo at a very young age, but she's feeling nervous and she can't sing. Someone calls out to her, "Take your time. The Lord ain't in a hurry," which is very
love
sweet. I
that.
love that too. But Brandy writes, quote, "This wave of encouragement somehow only made the pressure more suffocating. This was my first awareness of what it meant to have expectations placed upon your shoulders, how even the kindest intentions could feel like concrete blocks when you weren't ready to carry them."
Hmm.
And I felt like this was just major foreshadowing to her role as Moesha, probably even the pressure she felt for each subsequent album to
Yeah,
not only outperform the last one, but to be like redefining somehow. Because
right.
that's what I gathered too. It wasn't like I just want to make good music. It's like my album has to be at the forefront of the new type of
Right.
music. It needed to be genre and barrier breaking. And this is another part where I wish she would have gone further into this. She keeps talking throughout her memoir about the pressure and feeling worn out, but I wanted more of her like I can imagine, and she dances around it, which is why I'm like, just give it to me. Like, as a young Black woman, she had to present herself a certain way.
Yeah.
It just seemed like there was a really huge weight that she like acknowledges here and there, like, and she does also say that she felt like other women had paved the way for her a little bit, but I don't know, did you also pick up on that, or am I just like expecting too much from this memoir? I don't know.
When I was reading it, I felt like a lot of just the kind of overworking of her was probably, at least in part, due to kind of, there's kind of that saying that like a Black person has to work twice as hard as a white person to achieve the same. And I feel like that was probably at least somewhat contributing. And I probably even motivated her mother to, maybe not set a boundary as soon as she should have, because she knew like she has to work harder, or
Yeah.
or had kind of had that belief or that feeling. And so I feel like it's in there, but you're right. It's not like she's ever really overtly saying it or connecting to it, and maybe she just kind of decided, you know what, I can't control that. Like that may be true, but there's no point in focusing on it. It was something that I just can't control. And maybe she didn't feel like, I don't know, there was any point in belaboring it if she
Yeah.
had no control over the situation. But
That seems to be how her parents modeled also working through their lives and how they encouraged her to work through the industry. Like, yeah, you're
yeah,
Black. People won't like that, but that's their burden to bear, not yours. But at the
right.
same time, it still was her burden to bear. And
Totally
it almost
was.
broke
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
On top of that, I mean, the industry is so fickle and fame is so fleeting. Like, I totally understand. I think if I had been 10, 11, 12, I think she's 15 when she gets Moesha, but she had had songs break out and she had been on Thea, like, I would be so afraid. I would just feel like if I say no,
Right.
what if I don't have another job? What if the
She's
next
not
job doesn't
only,
come?
she's Black, she's a woman, and she's a child. She has three things that make her highly vulnerable
Yeah.
to being preyed upon, really, which is what to me she ultimately was. And yeah, I don't blame her for not. I mean, how can you? She was a child. She didn't even have a fully developed sense of self yet,
Yeah.
which I think is what the whole book was about, basically, is her just kind of flailing, trying to find herself in the middle of everybody else telling her who she was.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so going back to her childhood, it was peppered with a lot of bullying, like physical bullying, which
Yeah.
definitely
Hmm.
surprised me.
Right.
I experienced, I mean, girls in my school were not nice, but like they did not get physical in the way where
Right.
Brandy gets punched in the face. She's like doing drill practice, and this girl gets all up in her face. And Brandy
Yeah.
just kind of does the thing where she's trying to be the bigger person, as her parents have taught her. And as she
Yeah.
just kind of seems to be, she doesn't want to meet violence with violence. But this girl is just unrelenting. And it's
Hmm.
embarrassing at a certain point. And I think something clicks in Brandy's brain too, where she's like, this girl's not going to stop tormenting me just because I don't
Right.
engage and don't react. So she takes extension cords and goes to her house and whips her with. I was like,
I was like, yeah, girl.
there's the sun. There's the fire.
There's the fire.
I was like, wow,
Yeah.
Brandy. She's trying to break out of this like good girl persona that
Hmm.
I think very much, I think it's a slippery slope, right? Because I get it. I am a good girl. I enjoy being a good girl. Was I conditioned to
Hmm.
be this way in a lot of ways? Yeah, probably. But I don't resent it. I'm trying to break through the things that I feel like are holding me back in my life. And I'm trying to,
Yeah.
model different ways to be for my daughter. But I think being a good person is an okay thing to be. Being the
Yeah.
bigger person is an okay thing to be. And it just feels like she had these moments in her childhood where she was able to say, like, look, see, I didn't always do the right thing. I wasn't always just this really like moldable or restricted person. And then I was missing those later in her life, or I was at least missing the acknowledgement that like I got to make mistakes. I mean, she did. She does right. Like I didn't feel like I could make mistakes. I did feel like I had to be good. I guess, and maybe a part of it was because it was co-written by a man. It's just like a man, no matter how great of a writer you are, like a man will never be able to understand what it
Mm-mm.
is like to be a young woman in the world. And I wonder if there's something to that. Because again, it's like her
Maybe.
memoir just fell short sometimes
Hmm.
with some of that stuff.
She touches on at one point that her brother starts wearing gang colors or
Yeah.
something, and then they
Yeah.
like move him away. And, so I didn't necessarily get a sense of, I mean, by these individual interactions, I got a sense that, okay, there's like some violence in this community. How safe are we on a daily basis in this community? To me, I was kind of like, maybe she still was like as good as you can be when you're living in like potentially dangerous, violent conditions. Like at some point, you got to have some fight in you. If you're on the receiving end of potentially, some pretty severe violence, like I don't know. I hope my daughter would fight back.
This is not a situation where like ignoring the problem makes it go away. You just become an
Right.
easier target.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to be a person that's like, yeah, meet violence with violence, but I totally understood
Hmm.
where she was coming from here. And it did feel
Yeah.
like she kind of had no other choice. But
Right.
it's like, where were her parents? Like, they're these strong foundational, but like, she doesn't talk about really
Yeah.
telling her parents about these things. It was like
Yeah.
Lord of the Flies until the parents were home. But then I
Yeah.
was like, but your dad's a minister of music. How is that a
Right.
9 to 5 job?
I know. I know.
Again, there were just like some holes in there, which,
Right.
I understand in memoir, you have to like pick and choose what you want to tell. And like, it's not the ultimate truth. That's not the whole truth. These women are still telling us only what they want us to hear. Just again, it's just like I just wanted a little bit more. I think what was so frustrating was that like there was so much stuff, but then there wasn't like the reflections about it,
Right. Hmm.
you
I
know?
like I would have loved to see her reflect a little bit more on the extension cord incident or getting punched in the face by that kid, and like especially her mother's reaction to that. Like,
Yeah. And wouldn't she be curious if
hmm.
we had experienced what Brandy had experienced? I would be curious now, Mom,
Yeah.
what were you feeling during that time? Like,
Yeah.
were you
Sure.
feeling helpless? I don't know. Again,
Mm-mm.
it just didn't go
Yeah.
that step further, which I would
Hmm.
have liked. And yeah, there was a little bit like, and then this story happened, and then this story happened, and then this story happened. And you're
Hmm.
like, okay, but
Hmm.
how did that make you feel? How did that change you? Like, what are you hoping to do differently for your
Yeah.
kid? Or I don't know. The wild story of the other bully who was murdered over the summer after
Oh
Brandy like
gosh.
prayed for her to
Yeah.
go away.
Did she just have so many of these like kind
Yeah.
of mind-boggling little incidents to share? Like I personally, I would have enjoyed more digging into those stories than I did about all her recording. Not that I wasn't interested in the recording stuff, but I
Uh-huh.
I thought her childhood and upbringing, that kind of coming of age, that element of it was what really captured me
Me too.
more so than the nitty-gritty behind all the recording details.
I am with you 100,000%. That's exactly what it was for me too, especially like going from that world to Hollywood, a set and a studio. That's what I wanted more of. You get pegged in this industry very fast.
Yep. And probably more so for her being black and the R&B, I'm
Yeah.
sure it was like, well, you're not a Whitney, so now you're this. Like,
Totally. And it feels so hard. Like you want to be authentic, you want to be true to yourself, but you also want to stay relevant and you want to stay popular. And they're telling you this is what you need
hmm
to do it. But
Yep.
I feel like you and I are having more discussion and discourse about it than like she did in her book. So
Yeah.
a little bit. But I mean, she did go through a lot. So maybe a part of it is just like getting through the stories. But let's talk
hmm
about her finding fame. Her big dream is to have a record deal and also to meet Whitney Houston. She and her brother start doing the showcases. She writes, at 10, all I felt was hope and excitement. Talent showcases became my sanctuary, a temple outside of church where I worshiped at the altar of possibility. Did you ever do showcases or anything like that?
A few. Yeah. I can remember, I'm trying to remember if I did. I did at least one or two that were sort of singing oriented showcases. I mean, I don't really understand how they could become her sanctuary because I never felt, I always just felt like pressured and like, I don't know. I don't think I ever felt that they were a temple of possibility for me.
Well, I think that she wanted this dream so badly. She had such a narrowed focus. And I think she was propped up by her parents
Oh,
so
yeah.
much. I don't think it ever occurred to her that it wouldn't happen in that way
Yeah.
where when you're a child, you just think anything's possible, especially if your
Sure.
parents are constantly being like, Brandy, you're going to make it. Brandy, you're going to make it. Brandy,
Right.
you're going to make it.
Right.
So she's discovered by this man, Chris, who is also representing Immature, this young boy band at the time, a very young Marquis Houston from AKA Roger from Sister Sister, which is one of my favorite shows growing up. She talks about them being like 9 years old. I was like,
Yeah.
what the heck? Ugh, I just don't think I would ever let my 9-year-olds. I mean, the chances of someone at that young of age having a popular career and then having a sustaining career.
Right.
It's wild. It's wild. It's
And then
wild.
there are so many examples of children in that industry who grow up to have
M-
drug
Major
problems,
problems.
mental health issues.
Major.
I know. As a parent, I'm like, oh, I'd have to put lots of limits around everything to see my child want to do something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But so Brandy is like hanging out with the boys one night, and one of them starts groping her.
Oh my gosh.
And she does that thing that we all do where you freeze. And then I love that
Yeah.
she said fear gave way to fury. And
hmm
she starts like yelling at them. They're cracking up and she gets so pissed. She throws a book at one of them and it scratches his cornea.
Yeah, but the wrong one, Alex.
I know.
The wrong one.
Not even the kid who was groping her. It was kind of. Do you ever recall like just being in a very uncomfortable situation like that growing up?
There were some like unwelcome advances and things of that nature, but to me, what gets me with that is like, where were these boys' parents? That's the part of this, and these children involved in these worlds, like they're exposed to too much too soon, and then nobody's guiding them morally. Like nobody's giving them any sense of right and wrong or something.
And doesn't she write about
Because
like the lyrics they were singing? I mean, it's like
yeah, they're very
ridiculous.
sexualized from,
Yeah,
yeah. And it's just really sad.
it is really sad. For all that we just talked about with like what fame and stardom has done to people, like Brandy does seem to be a very grounded
Agreed. Yeah, honestly,
individual.
it's remarkable that she is where she is now, I think, having gone through all of it.
Okay. So Brandy's career is going, and she decides to enroll in Hollywood High School where she's not getting any solos. And she's like, wait a second, I know I'm talented. What's happening? And she starts to notice a pattern. Lots of the white blonde girls were getting propped up to launch into Hollywood. I guess there was like a person connecting high school students to like casting directors. I was like, this is wild.
I was like, what? In what world is
It's a
this?
feeder. It was a when you do drive by Hollywood High School, I mean, she talks about being on the mural herself. Like, there are a lot of very notable people who
Yeah.
probably didn't graduate from Hollywood High School, but passed through the halls for sure.
Yeah, sure.
And she writes, I was a black girl from a black neighborhood going to a school where there were very few girls who looked like me. And her mother tells her this: focus on you, on your growth, on becoming the best Brandy Norwood you can be. The rest will follow. Which I appreciated a lot of that sentence.
Yeah.
She also says this: never make being black an excuse. You can do whatever you put your mind to. Everything will happen for you as it should. There will be people who don't want you to succeed because of the color of your skin, but that's their burden to bear, not yours. And she goes further into this is a lengthier thing on page 84. And while I do appreciate what her mom is doing here, I think one of the most important lessons we can tell our kids is that life isn't fair, but that doesn't mean that you can't be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Did it work out for Brandy? Did she get the album? Did she get the TV show?
Hmm.
Yes, but it might not have. And
Right.
what does all of this that her parents are saying to her, what would that have made her feel about herself had she not gotten Moesha, had she not gotten
Right.
Fia? That was one thing where I was like, racism is real. Gatekeeping is
Yeah.
real. And she does go
Right.
on to experience that in the industry. Is it healthy to encourage kids that determine an excellence can overcome any barrier when that's not realistic?
I know. I think about that a lot too. I'm like, because you do, I feel like I hear these stories a lot of celebrities or people who've, exceeded all expectations of like, well, my mom told me, I could do anything I set my mind to.
My
And,
mom told me
you
that
know,
too.
and I think that actually was a very common millennial experience. I will say that. Like, I think that's sort of the overarching theme of millennials is we were all told, just go to college. You'll be great. You'll be successful. You'll have so much money. You'll, whatever. And obviously, we all know now that that really isn't true. Like, just going to college or, was not the key to success. But in this case, I feel like it does serve a purpose for those particular people because it literally makes them so, like, kind of deluded into, like, not seeing any of the possibility that it won't happen, that they just maintain that single-minded focus on their goal. And so they're not maybe as distracted by what is ultimately reality that's probably peeking in here and there, kind of.
Yeah.
But like you said, regardless of any of that, it easily could not pan out. And there
Yeah.
are probably, for every, Brandy story, there's probably 9 or 10 other stories of people who also were told the same things, who didn't make it and, have to experience that come down of like, oh, okay.
Now what? I mean, she even talks about when she's first discovered by Chris, he tries to put her in a girl band. And
Hmm.
then she's singled out by the record executive saying, come back when you're a little bit older,
Yeah,
but just you. So those other
right.
two girls, like
So those other two girls. Yeah.
you watch their dreams puff up in smoke. And I think I would have also just loved because Brandy talks about going to visit Macomb and the sanctuary that it was for her. And like her parents, like you said, very much that was a choice that they made, right? To
Hmm.
shield Brandy and Ray J from racism and the
Yeah.
rippling effects. But like her parents must have experienced a different like whose memoir I want? Brandy's
Yeah.
mom's. I want
Me
Brandy's
too.
mom's
I want
memoir.
her mom's memoir so bad.
Yeah, and it's just like those would be fascinating. Like your daughter is a
Yeah.
star, and then especially when it comes to her, and being her manager. Tell me more. I mean, with your kids, do you tell them like all your dreams will come true? I'm very quick to remind my daughter that like life isn't fair, and she started to experience in very low stakes situations that life isn't fair. And I'm like, it's not, but that doesn't mean that it can't be beautiful and that it can't be good and that you can't go for what you want.
I feel like with my son, because my daughter's too young, but my son is 12, soon to be 13. And so some of these topics have started to come up. And I really focus on, it's funny because I feel like it's like could be the thesis statement of her whole book, but I really focus on just like loving yourself for who you are, being true to yourself, like let that be the guide, let that be the thing that centers you, whatever it is, and just accept yourself. Like, he has a lot of things come up where, well, I'm this way and the other kids are like that, or, I'm different because of this, or I don't have a, sport that I play really well, and it's like, that's fine because that's what you like and that's what you don't like and that's who you are. And you don't have to be anything different from exactly what you are. And just
Yeah.
if you can get to that place of just raw acceptance and obviously like pushing yourself to be the best version of yourself. But ultimately, like we're all going to be ourselves and trying to, I don't know, package ourselves in some way to be accepted is never going to turn out well. So I just try to operate from that perspective. And then at some point, he can figure out what's realistic and what's not. And, if he comes to me with wild dreams, then I don't know, I'll probably give him a little dose of reality.
Yeah, it's kind of like life is a series of choices,
Mm,
and choices have consequences, good or bad. And then it's just up to you whether you can keep going down a path. Like I've had
yeah.
definite times where when my career before the kids, like when it was in a lower moment, Pat would be like, you can't keep doing this if like this is how you're going to live your life in between jobs. Like you're killing
Mm,
yourself. Like
mm-hmm.
you're upset all the time because
Yeah.
you've associated your worth and your value with like booking jobs, you know?
Mm,
And so I kind of had to be like, okay, I've got to develop some mental fortitude. Like I've got to make the shift within myself if I'm going to keep doing this, or else I'm
yeah.
just going to have a really shitty life, like a really bitter,
Right.
resentful life, you
Yeah.
know? And so it is about going deep and going inward.
And the other thing I think I would say is like, just because the journey doesn't end in like superstardom or ultra success doesn't mean the journey was wrong. Like,
Or wasn't worth it. Yeah.
there were probably, even if she hadn't had the success she had, there would be still so many valuable things that she would have gotten from all of those experiences, that the outcome doesn't have to be kind of what makes us decide, oh, it was totally worth it, or oh, you made it. Like maybe she can be making it right in that moment when she's having these amazing experiences that are helping her grow as a person or become who she's going to be, or, you know.
Also, to that, like, you don't know when the journey's over.
Right.
So, I mean, she could still very much just be in her journey right now, and
Sure.
everything that she has gone through, the failures and the successes, has gotten her to be. I mean, it sounds like she has a beautiful relationship with her daughter, and she was
Hmm.
able to be the type of mother that she wanted to be for her daughter. Again, I wish we would have gotten more of that, a lot more of that.
Yeah.
That to me would also have been a very beautiful thing for her to have explored in her memoir, the
Hmm.
motherhood phase a little bit more than we kind of just get her like being pregnant and having a child. I mean, I think that that's just life is a series of choices, and you make the choice and then you make the most of that choice.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. That's all you
All you
can
can
do.
do.
And it really is up to you. Like you can I just had a discussion with an author, and I was editing our episode, and it'll come out next week. But she says like life is either a series of miracles or it's not, and it's like up to you to decide how to see it.
Hmm.
And I think that's such a great lesson that you're teaching your son. Like you are amazing, but at the end of the day, the only person who really needs to believe that is you. You can't force other people
Hmm.
to see that. And when you
Right.
are comfortable in your own skin, then you can just kind of take life as it comes and approach it from a way healthier place.
Yeah.
All right, back to Brandy. She gets into this very uncomfortable dating scene with Wanya. He
Ugh.
is a singer for Boys to Men. She's opening for them on tour. It's obvious he's grooming her when he brings her flower. It was just like I didn't know that they dated, and so as I was reading it, I was like, this is making me uncomfortable. And then she's like, and then we dated, and I had sex with him, and then he wouldn't basically commit to me, and I had to page him. And then
Yeah,
he
that
would
was
call me
so,
back. I don't know. It was weird because it was clear that she wasn't valuing herself in a very big way with the men that she chooses to have as partners.
hmm
But again, there was no like introspection on like why that was. It was just like, and then this
hmm
guy sucked, and then that guy sucked. And look, like these guys really did suck. She's also in a pretty abusive,
Yeah.
manipulative relationship with like a backup dancer. And then even the father of her child like seems like a good guy. And it seems like their relationship just sort of fizzles out organically. And then he goes on the Wendy Williams show and says that Brandy was basically his mistress. It was very bizarre. It
I
was
know.
wild. But if I kept dating men like that, or choosing men like that, I would go inward and be like,
Hmm.
why? Especially if like her father seems like a very great guy.
It's like either tell me what it is, like what you feel like either from your own, self-image or past experiences, like what led you to kind of end up in those situations and like to navigate them, or tell me like very explicitly it was their freaking fault.
Yeah.
They were all terrible people. Because sometimes, honestly, I think there are a lot of duds out there as far as sometimes it can be hard to choose the right guy because sometimes they're just, there's some bad ones out there. And especially, I think, in that industry
That's
where it's
true.
all about glitz and glamour and who's on my arm and who can elevate my status. And it's like, but like, again, I think I would have liked to hear her because I feel like she does dance around it a little bit. And I would have liked to hear her explicitly state that, like, I do think she did it with Wanya a little bit. Like, to me, that call out at the end of like, he was an adult and I was a child. Like, I felt like she called that out adequately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of these other situations, I was like, oh, why?
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. I think that it seemed like she was, especially by Wanya and then the backup dancer, dancer like incredibly loved bombed. And then there was kind of like this bait and switch that happened. And it was heartbreaking reading about the way that this backup dancer talked to her. I mean, he was so belittling to her
Oh,
at a time where
yes.
she was so vulnerable. Like she was
Right.
already being overworked and she was like so afraid to say no, so afraid to mess up. But again, she wasn't putting those dots together in a way that I feel like it just would have made the memoir a little bit stronger, I think. That
Hmm.
was the thing about this memoir. It had all the ingredients. It was just like
Yeah.
ultimately something fell flat for me.
There were just some connections that I think weren't quite drawn, at times.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were drawn, like I would feel them drawn in like very simple little moments, like transitional moments where it wasn't like, I don't know, like the last word of the chapter sort of where I
Yeah. And you're
needed
like,
that
but wait,
like
more.
conclusion. Yeah.
Back to her TV career, she gets Moesha, which is a very fun story to read about how all of that happened. And her mom starts being her manager, and she just talks a lot about being burnt out, which we've talked about before. She writes about starting to like kind of resent her mom, but again, she doesn't go as deep into it as I would have appreciated, or even kind of really given like, wouldn't you have had a conversation with your mom about that now? Like, aren't you curious? Now like
Yeah.
how did that affect you and how did it affect your relationship? It
Right.
was weird. It was like my mom and I were not in a good place, and then it's later it was like, and then my mom and I were like kind of okay. And I was like, oh, okay.
I kind of feel like there's some protection of her mother happening as she's writing this book. Like as I'm reading it, I'm like, come on, like I know you had deeper criticism of your mother. Like at some point, you really probably were thinking, why didn't you protect me? I mean, that's what was going on in my mind the whole time is why aren't you protecting your daughter? Like you
Yeah.
need to step in. And like obviously I can understand and rationalize, like I'm sure they had invested so much time and money and kind of both of them. I mean, basically her mother's career is tied in with her daughter's career. And it's like you want to see your child live their dream and you might be willing to push them a little bit but at some point, like your child's having a full-on nervous breakdown here.
Do you not feel guilty about that? I mean, I think that's why
Hmm.
it is so, it's not a good idea to mix business with family. I understand wanting to like keep that money in the family. I totally get that. But like Brandy's mom had not been a manager.
Right.
Like she needed someone who could take care of her in a way that like that line just got crossed. It was blurry because Brandy's mom didn't really know what she was doing either. Like let's be real.
I mean, I just wonder to what extent her mother even had the power to kind of put her foot down
Yeah.
sometimes,
She
because
didn't
she
have these
probably didn't.
relationships. No, she didn't.
Right.
Yep.
And she didn't have that weight in the industry to say, no, like, we're not going to do that. Or, yes, she is going to take the day off and, you're going to reschedule that. Or,
Yeah. Because it's also your job as a parent to understand and be able to recognize your child's limitations. Like, of course, it makes sense to me that Brandy is saying yes to all this stuff. She is operating from a fear-based place, which I think a lot of young people do in the industry at first. I think people still operate from a fear-based place because you're always one job away from never working again, it feels like, especially as a woman, especially as a young Black woman. Like, I get all that. And so, exactly, Brandy's mother's job was to protect her, was to be able to navigate the industry in a way that she just didn't have the tools to do because she didn't have the relationships and she didn't have the history in the industry. And that's where it gets really tricky when moms and dads want to like manage their kids and you're like, it's not that easy because
right.
it's not just like contract negotiations and logistics.
It's
It's
relationships.
seeing the
Yeah.
bigger picture too.
Hmm.
And if your kid burns out, there's no bigger picture.
Right.
It was heartbreaking when she writes about one of her albums and she felt like it was so true to her. And then, like, she reads one of the criticisms and it said, Brandy seems to be a very good girl who does very good things. Brandy has suffered for this good reputation. She writes, some people didn't like what I represented, this image of perfection that felt unattainable, unrealistic. And the truth is, I didn't always like it much either. I was preserved in a fleeting glimpse of innocence that no longer reflected who I was becoming, unallowed to make mistakes, to get it wrong and learn from those experiences. I wanted to be liked. I also wanted the career I had. If I'd stumbled or fucked up even once, would my career have ascended to what it had? Would TV executives had wanted to green light a family sitcom with me at the center? Would Disney have made me their first Black princess? Would the dolls or the endorsement deals or sponsorships have happened? So she asks all these questions, but then she doesn't answer it. And that's what I
Yeah.
wanted. I wanted her to be like, I don't think it would have. I just wanted her to be explicit. I think I wanted it to feel
Hmm.
like Brandy was sitting across from me, like, and we were having an intimate conversation.
Hmm.
You know, like so many memoirs do, like it feels very raw and vulnerable and intimate. And she has those moments for sure. Overall, it was like you bring up so many good points, but then you don't give us like your opinions and
Like
reflections
I
on
like want
them.
her to bring down the hammer, kind of.
Yes, me
Like for
too.
me, I want to hear her ask the question and then bring down the fucking hammer. Like
Like she did with
lay it out.
Wanya. Like she
Like
did with
no, I
Wanya.
wouldn't have. I would have ended up back, home with my parents, just living the same old life.
And
And
you
so I
all
did what I
fucking
had
know it.
to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because like
Yeah.
she's dancing around that. And
Yeah.
I also think it's tricky being 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, especially those years where like you are a young girl
Hmm.
and you are innocent.
Yeah.
And then like you have sex and you're exploring your sexuality, but like under the male gaze. And it's like, what does that even mean? And it's like, come on, Brandy, like give us more.
Yeah.
Because she is in such a good place now, it felt like she actually was one of the few women who really could give that interest. Because, like, Britney Spears' memoir, like, she kind of goes there, but
Uh,
like who she is now, it just kind of undermines
hmm.
so much of what she said in a way that's really heartbreaking. And if Brandy just had an opportunity here that I think she doesn't make the most of. And
Hmm.
it could be by design. This is her memoir. This is her choice. She gets to share whatever truths she wants and she gets to reflect on what she wants. She didn't go there as much for me. There were two really powerful chapters. Cover Girl, where she shares the impact of chasing body perfection in a really strong and powerful way. She has all those like numbers. I
Oh yeah.
do feel like it's interesting because I appreciate what she does here. And like I said, it's one of the most powerful chapters, but it almost could have been like triggering if you had an eating disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what it felt like. And ooh, does it still kind of feel like this? And ooh, do I still kind of feel like this? And I
Hmm.
hadn't ever felt that way when I was reading a memoir about someone discussing their body
Mm.
dysmorphia and anorexia. So I thought that was
Hmm.
weird. It could just be me and where I am in my life, maybe. I don't know. But I was like, there's something triggering about this, and I don't know why.
It was just so clearly her, I don't know, her thought process and like the way that the thoughts flowed was laid out in a way that I felt like was very easy to access, sort of like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, like that's exactly what goes on in your mind.
Yeah. And then the other really powerful chapter was lucid dreams. I thought she
Yeah.
really did balance that line between
Mm.
acknowledging I was involved in a situation where someone lost their life. And
Yeah.
it kind of was to no fault of my own, but I do feel at fault and I do feel guilty, but I want to honor them and I don't want to make this about me, but yet this is my memoir. I don't know, it's a very tricky thing. I
Hmm.
don't know how she could have handled it better.
That just seems like an incredibly difficult thing to process. I have no notes.
And then she writes about the birth of her daughter towards the end of her
Yeah.
memoir. And this is the turning point. I think at that point, too, it felt like her musical career was not shaping up the way that she had wanted it to be. I think people still probably would have continued making music with her. It's weird. It's
Hmm.
like she didn't explicitly say, I took a step back from the industry. So you're not sure, like, did the industry kick you out? Like, was nobody, Moesha's canceled. I mean, I guess she sort of felt like because she got pregnant at a young age and didn't marry the father, that she had sort of blown up this persona that she had created in Hollywood.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure people were still approaching Brandy to be in stuff.
You would think so. I mean, so she said she got dropped by her label after her record didn't have a lot of commercial success. I don't know. I wonder if just that alone was enough of a quote unquote failure to her that she just sort of
Was needed to lick her wounds for a little bit.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And or I mean, wanted to raise her daughter, maybe she was like, it's too much. Like this is a good time to step back. I'm gonna go ahead and do it for me.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it was a big betrayal, the father of her daughter going on Wendy Williams.
Ugh,
And she was just
yeah,
like, wait a second, this is a really fucked up industry and media
right,
landscape. And yeah, I don't think I want to raise my daughter this way.
right.
I think it's just like I needed her. Maybe I just needed her to connect a little bit more dots for me. I felt like I
Hmm.
was projecting a lot of my own
Yeah.
stuff onto her memoir, which might have been right, might have not been right. Did you decide to step back? Did you feel like you had no other choice? Like again, I just wanted more. But it sounds like
Hmm.
she built something really beautiful for her daughter. And through her daughter, she found a confidence and a strength that I think can happen to women when they become
Yeah.
mothers.
Yeah, definitely.
She writes, I found freedom. In the sting of disapproval, a strange new power emerged. No longer the perfect, polished role model, I could finally exist in the world exactly as I was, perfectly human, which is always a good place to be.
Yeah.
So, how is she ready to come back, potentially showing the perfectly human, confident, strong woman who doesn't need to be a good girl anymore? 'Cause she's a
Yeah.
woman. She's a woman who's grown into herself. She has a new single out. It's called Intention with Ty Dolla Sign. It's kind of a bop. Like,
Okay.
it's nothing, it's not something where I was like, oh yeah, but it was like, okay.
I'm like, Brandy, I don't want a little bop though. Like, I really want her depth. I
Give me your
want,
moon, Brandy.
give me your moon, give me the ballads, like use that beautiful voice. Because I'm sorry, like a beautiful voice is wasted on catchy little R&B tunes or, a pop, even a pop hit. Like it's
Yeah.
wasted. It's a waste. Like give me something emotional and,
Yes.
that's what I want.
Me too. Me too. Brandy, if you're listening. She finishes the book with this. She writes, this book all began with a question. What would it mean to reclaim a life defined by others? No single phase of my life defines me. Not the wide-eyed teenager signing her first contract, not the broken woman in a hospital gown, not the recluse hiding from the world. Okay, so there, it's like, so you did recluse. Like, tell us more.
Mm-hmm.
Not the comeback queen rising from the ashes.
Hmm.
Dun, dun, dun. I am all of these women and none of them. I am the through line that connects them, the consciousness that experienced them, the soul that survived them. Again, a lot there. I think I just needed more. I needed more.
Yeah.
I would still recommend this memoir. I think if you're a fan of Brandy, there's some fun anecdotes in here that you'll enjoy, but don't go into it, I think, expecting to get a clear
Answers.
answers or even a clear view of like who she really was going through this. I think she fell back into the I was burnt out, I was burnt out, I was burnt out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Even that last phrase, it's like, okay, a recluse, like that's a person hiding from the world.
Right. Yeah.
And you literally talk about that in the last 4 pages of your book.
Yeah. I could have enjoyed some pages on that.
Yes. Did you feel like a failure? How did you pick yourself up from the ashes?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted more, but I do hope that this is a new beginning for Brandy. I like her. I loved her, and I still know what you did last summer. I love that she had it written in her contract that her character could not die because she
I
wanted
loved
to be
that.
like a Black woman who didn't die in a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like she did do these things that I think helped set up for the women behind her. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's more to her story, and I hope that she finds what she's looking for, and I hope that if she writes another memoir, she really lets it all out this time.
Yeah. I am Brandy. Hear me roar. I would recommend it. I mean, and especially as somebody who, tied in with the music industry, like had a music background, I thought it was really fun to read at times, but also like there was a good emotional journey. Like I really did enjoy the book, even if I feel like, yeah, like you, like there was something missing or just not quite fully fleshed out at times. And maybe that is because her story is just really not over yet. Like she's in this kind of transitional phase of maybe making a comeback. And so she can't really fully draw conclusions because we're not there yet.
Which is an interesting place to approach a memoir from. I don't know if I
Agreed.
like that. Yeah.
Somebody probably told her it would be a good way to launch her comeback, is my guess.
Yeah. That's not my favorite thing, but I
Yeah.
still find value in the memoir. I really do. I don't feel like this was a complete cash grab or like
Yeah.
comeback setup. So we'll put it at that.
And or maybe like it was part of the way she processed it all, like to actually sit down and write down her whole story. I mean, I haven't really done that even with my own life, like thought back over every event and tried to see how they all culminate. And so to actually sit down and organize it all and think through these like pivotal events and how they've impacted you, I mean, might have just been self-therapy,
True. Well, thank you, Kate, for joining me today. Thank you for being
you.
super fast reader / listener to your robot lady guy. We'll have you again on the show very soon. I love you very much.
Thank you. I can't wait to be back.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Speaking of being good, next week, Carrie Doherty joins the show to discuss her new memoir, Selfish. It's her unflinching account of what happens when a woman finally stops shrinking and starts asking, what do I actually want? We're getting into all of it: marriage, motherhood, ambition, and the musician who helped her remember who she was. Until then, take care.